This is Kristin.
And this is Steve, and you're listening to Cycling Together, a show about all things bikes, riding, and riding together.
Show 5.
Show 5.
And for show 5...
Yep. Maybe this should be the last show we actually say the number of the show, and we'll right?
I don't know.
Right?
I mean,
it's a big number.
Babies,
right?
we talk
to
about like until they're, 78 months old.
Right.
You're probably right. It's just exciting every time we get our you-know-what together to get up here.
It is. And, the weeks go by, and all of a sudden it's showtime again. And the more those come up, the faster winter will be over.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
This week was kind of a slog. I have been fighting off illness. So unfortunately, I have not been able to ride at all, except for today. Today, we did get out for a fat bike ride.
Yep, the fresh air was good for you.
It really was. It was definitely one of those where I thought.
And it's been so cold today at being, 35. It was mild.
Balmy.
Yeah, balmy. Mm-hmm.
Welcome to New England.
Yeah,
it was
felt good.
Balmy. Yeah, it felt really good. You've been out a couple of times. I know everybody's been out posting awesome pictures of fat bikes.
They have at the same time.
Snow.
It seems like everybody's been sick. So
well, that's just how it is.
Yeah, it's been a sickly winter for a lot of people,
and it's so hard.
Mm-hmm.
I will say the biggest change from when I was younger is that I'll be like, oh, I haven't ridden in so long, and then I realize it's been 3 days.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, maybe it hasn't been. So I've been good about trying to let my body dictate, but today was right on that cusp of, is it better to rest or is it better to get outside and get some fresh air? We did 4 miles. We did about an hour.
Yeah, and the fat bikes in the snow.
Yeah.
Yep. And it was nice. It was really nice. We just
nice.
just kind of tooled around. And
I may have regrets later. Anyway, what are we talking about this week?
We're talking about riding together, right?
Yes. So
all right.
One of the things we really want to do is to talk to people about how they got started riding.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought show number 5 was a great time for us to share our stories.
Right.
About how we started cycling. And we're not talking about like, I was a kid and I had a bike and it had a really cool banana seat. I mean, obviously bikes
I
kids
did
are
have
awesome.
I did have a bike with a very cool banana seat.
Yeah, I may have said that on purpose. But
that dates that certainly dates us.
yeah, exactly. In the big.
Oh yeah, the big high handlebars. Yep.
But more like when, I guess, we're going to talk about when it became an intention that you were riding a bike and not just a thing.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? So let's start with you.
Okay.
The bike guy. Because I have these great pictures, which I definitely will pull up, of you with your Cannondale that your mom talks about when you bought and you slept with it in your bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you get started? Basically riding bikes. When did riding bikes become like just thing we did to think I'm doing?
It is.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it is. It's a little bit harder for me to separate those childhood bikes from when I actually rode. So we'll just go real quick through the childhood bikes.
Okay.
Right? So yes, there was the banana seat bike and so forth and all that kind of stuff.
Cute.
That I started building jumps for and so forth. But then it got to a point where, and then I had a BMX bike, which I really only used for transportation. So,
okay.
Right. And then it was just one of those, it's the 80s.
How old are we talking? Okay. 80s.
Yeah.
So you're talking 10, 11,
sure, it's
12.
Yeah. And it's the 80s. And so, and then there's all these BMX movies, right? And BMXs were hot. And so I wanted a BMX bike I wanted this blue and yellow BMX bike with the mag wheels and so forth. But I used that mainly for transportation. We lived about, I think it was just over a mile out of the center of town. So I could ride that into town very easily.
Yep.
And then we moved into town. Okay. So right in the center of town, a block away from the middle and high school.
Nice.
Right. So that was just walking now. And then it was, I needed like real transportation. A BMX bike was not, and obviously that is not a bike you can just comfortably ride around. Right?
We just saw two young adults in downtown, town next door, and so on BMX bikes, like using them as and Sophie immediately was like, "Those bikes are too small for you."
Yeah, right. Because they're they're designed for
not designed for that.
They're designed for a sub-minute sprint track situation. Yeah. So
standing around.
Then I got my I got my first 10-speed, and when we say 10-speed, that was when you actually multiplied the front and the rear. So it was 2 in the front and 5 in the back.
And it bougie, man.
Yeah, and it was from Sears.
Okay.
Right, and so that was my first road bike. That was transportation. Like I could go anywhere, and including the next towns over.
Yep.
Right. So
for the record, you are from Central New York, Cazenovia, Syracuse area.
Yeah.
So pretty rural.
Yeah.
With cool towns in between. Right. Like.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Very rural.
Lots of hills.
Lots of hills. Lots of distance between a lot of the towns.
Yep.
And then at the time I had girlfriends in other towns because that came up from skiing. So everybody's skiing at the same mountains. And so you're meeting the people from different towns.
Girlfriends were.
Yeah. So
by the way, he's one of those guys that's friendly with all his girlfriends. So like I know them. They're lovely. I didn't realize you didn't live in the same
from that
town.
Area. Not from there. I'm not
I haven't met them.
No, okay. No. We're talking now. You're talking 12, 13, 14.
You had a girlfriend when you were 12?
Not 12. 13, 14, 15, let's call it. All right.
Okay.
So I could go see them on my bike.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
And that led to a love of being out on the road on a road bike.
Okay.
And then I saved up my money and I bought a used Cannondale R600 with what is now called Ultegra, but it was Shimano 600 at the time.
Okay.
And that was a real serious road bike.
And you didn't have anyone. I mean, I know your friend was, but you didn't have anyone like to look to for this kind of stuff, right? You're not from a family that rides bikes.
No,
you're not. Like it just somehow spoke to your soul.
It somehow spoke to my soul. And all right, so a very distinct memory is I found a performance bike catalog. Mm-hmm. So for whatever reason, like shoved into the book racks in one of my classes.
Okay.
Right?
Wild.
And so and because there was no internet at the time, you would have no idea like performance bike existed.
Right.
Unless you were really into the world well, I mean, I was started to get Bicycling Magazine at the time, so I'm sure they had ads in that. But things were starting to come up like that. And so this catalog just opened up the world of bike stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and
what a weird place to find it, too.
It is a weird place to find it. And I don't know if it was a teacher's or where it came from.
It's just fate.
Yeah, it was, right? And so, and so just like the gear of bikes spoke to me, and I just loved riding my bike. And there's another memory I have. So I was in the next town over in Manlius, and this was my best friend Chris and I were over there.
Also his
best
man.
We were seeing a couple girls, and so we walk into the house, and there is a box sitting there of Dura Ace parts. Okay. Of her father's. He had just like gotten.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I'm there just sitting there drooling over the Dura Ace
like
parts.
Brand new.
Oh
like
yeah.
Brand new.
Yeah.
He could afford things like that.
So and he had unboxed everything, right? So now he had everything out of the boxes, and it was, just sort of the raw parts sitting there in a box ready for probably a build or something. Yeah. And that was just
and you guys worked on your own stuff because you didn't have the money for brand new Dura Ace stuff, right? Like you had to save up stuff.
Oh yeah, right.
Your own stuff.
Yep.
So that's how you learned. But then you also started racing, right? When did
you? Yes. So
like,
once
your mom talks about you.
Oh, you know what? Actually,
racing.
I'm sorry. There was actually I forgot about the bike in between.
Okay.
So after the Sears Road bike, I got a Raleigh Technium. So that came from like a sports store in the mall, actually.
Okay.
The Raleigh Technium was a pretty cool bike. I mean, it was aluminum tubes, made 6061 aluminum tubes made by Boeing.
Okay.
That were in steel lugs, basically. And this was a pretty cool bike. It was a little bit of a noodle.
What does a noodle mean?
I mean, it was flexy.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
But
what is the bike?
And I still have that. I still have that frame.
Is that the bike Anders is riding?
Yeah. That's the one. That's sort of that salmon colored one.
So you have taken that bike.
Yeah.
That's why we needed a bike shop for
Right.
you. Yeah, because you've taken that bike and you made it into an e-bike for him.
Yeah, with an e-bike wheel.
With an e-bike wheel, which I just think is
and
amazing.
flat bars and so
forth.
forth.
And it's perfect because, like, unless you know what you're looking at, it kind of looks like a beater bike, which is
Exactly.
what you need
Well, it
around college.
Right.
But you wouldn't know it's an e-bike.
Yeah. And that's the first bike that I tinkered with.
Okay.
Learned how to fix things. Did a few upgrades here and there. You're constantly changing your bar tape. It's just all that kind of stuff.
It's all about the accessories.
And then from there I got that Canada.
Okay. And then so then I have this one picture, a very distinctive picture in my head of you with a blue bike, and you're
that would be the Cannondale.
You're putting it on or taking it off the back of a car,
Yep.
like you're at an event. Like I think you were at a race. Like
Yep.
how do you make the jump from, how do you even know where races are? Like, how do you, again, we had no internet.
Well, I know we
just
had no internet. It was difficult. You're right. And it's hard to, there was no internet. There was not the kind of mapping that you have with you when you're riding. So you actually had to sort of just go out into the world and figure your way around.
Do you think that's why you're so good at it now? At like
Maybe.
putting routes together?
Maybe.
Did you have a bike shop that you like
No.
frequented? No,
Not at all. Because they were too. They were all in Syracuse. There was one that opened in Manlius for a little while, so that we would stop at every now and then, but didn't actually last that long.
Okay.
So and so there was a USA. It was USA Cycling, and they produced a magazine or a paper. Right. And so in there, you would have races published and so forth. And so you'd see these things in there that you'd be like, oh, like, look, there's a race near me. We should figure out and go do that. Yeah.
I love that we should go and watch it. You were like, we should go do that. I just think that's remarkable in of itself. Okay. So that takes us to end of high school.
To end of high school. I guess.
Okay.
Yes.
And then you went to...
Yeah. So, and for graduation from high school, I got a mountain bike. So I got my first mountain bike.
Okay. What was it?
That was a Diamondback.
A Diamondback. Okay. And so then you went... Do you want to jump right to UMass?
No, we can...
Oh, you did go to Lehigh because you have a jersey.
I went to Lehigh and I joined the cycling team there.
Yep.
And, I did what we're going to call urban mountain bike riding there. So I just got this mountain bike.
Okay.
And because basically the campus was my mountain bike playground.
Yes.
Right. So I would be jumping and dropping off of everything I could possibly find.
They loved you.
Right. Yeah.
So you managed to fit 2 bikes into your dorm room?
Yes, because I didn't get a dorm. They were, oversold like so many colleges do.
Okay.
So my dorm room was a large room off of the side of the lounge. So there were 4 guys in there, and we had our own bathroom.
Okay.
It was a massive room. It was supposed to be like a function room, I'm sure, or something like that. They made into our dorm room. So it was huge.
So you had plenty of room.
Plenty of room.
Two bicycles. Were you like, other than this, like how many other students had, but were you tootling around by yourself? Like who?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. But I didn't, I'm trying to think of the races that I might have done at Lehigh. See, I was not doing so well as a student at Lehigh.
Because you were living in a lounge.
Yeah, because I was living in a lounge. You're absolutely right. No, yes, and I was kept up till 2-3 a.m.
Ping pong,
the TV. Yeah,
because back then we hung out in the lounge because we
Right.
didn't have the internet. There was
Correct.
nowhere else for us to go.
correct. The lounge was very, very active at
Right.
all times of the day.
Okay, so Lehigh,
Yep.
bit of a bust.
Lehigh was a bit of a bust in terms of the cycling team and so forth.
Yeah.
And then I transferred. Well, and then a year home taking classes while I filed transfer paperwork, and then I went to UMass.
And you brought your 2 bikes with you,
I brought my 2 bikes with me.
right? Because you say to the kids all the time, hey, what's there to do at UMass? You can ride your bike, and
Right.
and they do. I mean, even Sophie, who's our more active cyclist, looks at you like you're a bit bananas. You know, like there are other things to do at UMass than to ride your bike everywhere. Did you join any other clubs? Did you just
So
join?
there I was on the UMass cycling team, and so I did race there.
Were you part of any other club at UMass, or was it all cycling?
I did the hang gliding club.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, oh yeah. And for clubs, that might have been it.
Okay. So you joined the cycling team.
Yep.
You are actually on the notable alumni page of the cycling club.
Right.
And you raced.
Yeah, raced.
Rode.
Yep.
And then you hurt yourself.
The West Point race, I hurt myself.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And that took me out for the rest of the season. Yeah.
Okay. And that was road.
That was road.
That was road.
Yeah. I was involved in like a 30-person pileup.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And then I've got pictures of you racing mountain bikes in your UMass kit.
Yeah. So
jersey.
The UMass cycling team was really just road.
Yes.
And so, but then I really, I was very active on my mountain bike at UMass. And at that point, while I was at home, I had built a custom Kona hot.
Is that the light purple one?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to talk about bike regrets at some point.
And
That's
that was
topic.
a phenomenal bike. So, and then after the sort of that crash road, I was still active with the club, but I decided to do more mountain bike racing. So then I sort of sought out more mountain bike races and did a bunch of those, which the club didn't really do.
Okay.
So it was more me and whoever I could find to go to these things.
Cool. All right. And then you graduated.
Yep.
You graduated. You got a job.
Yep.
And you were just riding.
Yeah, and so at that point, I was mainly mountain biking after I graduated. Yes, with my first job. Yeah, I would be out on the mountain bike all the time.
Cool. And then we met.
Then we met.
And we ran racing because we were been together a long time.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's when I come into the story, and
Yeah, okay.
I to the most common question I get is, or not question so much, just assumption. So you must have always ridden your bike, and I
Shake your head?
no, I go no.
No, I did not.
Well, because I rode when I was a teenager. I had a bike. I had a 10-speed. She was white. I have 2 very distinct memories of riding bikes. One, and we talked about it with my dad, is my dad worked all the time, owned a business. And then one day he just came downstairs, I think it was 11, and he was like, we should go for a bike ride. I don't know what my reaction was because I was a teenager, so I was uphill. But we did. We jumped on these bikes. And I remember Dad complaining the whole time because his brakes were rubbing like the whole time. These were not bikes that were well maintained.
No,
they were just
right.
bikes,
Sure.
right? But I do remember I'm from outside of Boston, and we were riding, and he points at something. He's like, "Look, what's that?" And it was the town of Lincoln. Okay, I did not know where the town of Lincoln was. We had ridden forever. It was fantastic. We then stopped and had pancakes at an old train station. And then this is where the story gets a little fuzzy because he and I think we went to go see Breaking Away.
Yep.
In the theater.
Right.
But you have informed us that the time, chronologically, that does not work out.
Correct.
That we either saw Breaking Away because it was showing again.
It could have been showing in a small theater, for like a...
Right.
Yeah.
Or we saw American Flyers.
Yeah, my guess is the timing wise, you would have seen American Flyers.
But you were like, don't you remember the boobs? I don't even remember the movie, honestly. I don't remember going to the movie. Dad remembers that part of it.
Right.
We never did it again. I also don't know why. And then fast forward a couple of years in high school, I borrowed my mom. My mom had a big blue 10-speed, and I rode it to a babysitting job. And I had my backpack on one shoulder because we're Gen X, and that's what we did. And the bike was too big for me. And so I went over the handlebars, and the book bag hit me in the back of the head, basically slammed my head into and I broke my nose.
Oh
yeah. No, my whole face.
I didn't know it. I didn't heard this one.
I had road rash on my face. My mom she worked as a nurse. She brought me to the ER, and every doctor who walked by her, because they were all her friends, were like, do you think her nose is broken? And they'd be like, and that was like probably the last time I really rode a bike. When you and I met, I was a rollerblader.
Yeah.
Like that's what I did. I had moved from New York City. Rollerblades were great because I didn't have to lock them up.
Right.
I could get where, same idea. I used them
for transportation.
Oh yeah, I used them for, the coolest thing about New York City is that if you rollerblade to the Upper East Side to go hang out with your friends and get the free drinks for ladies' night, it's downhill.
Oh, right.
When you live in Midtown. So then you just roll home.
Nice.
So anyways, then we met. So we met at a party. How did we decide that I should get a bicycle? Do you remember? Because
Well, so...
I don't. How did you... First of all, have you ever had a girlfriend ride bikes with you?
No.
Okay.
No. So...
Okay.
Right. So... I mean, I was living in that apartment, my first apartment, when I got my first job out of college, when we met, right?
Yep.
And that's where I was mountain biking heavily, right? I mean, just all the time. I was exploring all the trails.
And you live, you were outside the Worcester area, great area for riding bikes, trails.
It really was.
Better now.
But it wasn't like...
We're still 25 years ago. We're talking
right, but these were not mountain bike trails either, right? I mean, mountain biking was not big then. So, so you were just finding all the little trails that existed everywhere.
Yeah.
And stringing them all together. Yeah.
Right.
So because of that, because I think I was mainly invested in mountain biking at the time. Right. That's where it was sort of, I can't remember exactly either, but we must have been like, well, I got to get you on a mountain bike.
It must have been a combination. I mean, I downhill skied. My parents think that me being athletic now is just hilarious because I was a profound bookworm couch potato. But I was active. Again, I downhill skied.
Right.
I must have expressed some interest in doing the thing you were doing, which is a smart way when you're dating someone.
That must have been it, right? You must have been like, well,
part of it,
try that.
But an investment had to be made because we bought I must have bought it.
You did, yes.
A Trek.
Yep.
Somehow
it was.
Me to buy. I was living at home, so I wasn't paying rent.
It was a Trek. I think it was an 820.
It was blue and gray.
Yeah, it was blue and gray.
Yep.
And just
was it new?
It was brand new. It came from Bike Alley in Worcester.
That's right.
Yep. And it was one of those cases. It's kind of profound to look back that was probably their first entry level mountain bike.
Okay.
Right. And I don't even think it had a front shock. Right.
No, I think it did.
No, it did not.
I can actually check because I think I have a picture. Is that the bike I had when we went to Stowe? Probably.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we did go up to Stowe, Vermont.
And I think that's the bike you had when I took you to your first race. But we can get to that too.
You also convinced me. Well, not convinced me. I mean, I will say I think I was a willing participant in all of it.
Yeah, I think you were.
I really liked it right off the bat. I will say I like things where I can go fast.
Yeah, right?
Right. I mean, you think about it. I like rollerblading.
Right, rollerblading
downhill
and down
skiing. I don't like hiking and walking.
Right.
I mean, I will. I wasn't a runner, but I did run, and I do find running more funner than walking because it's faster. So it makes some kind of sense.
No, it does make sense, actually, now when you think about it. Sure.
Mountain biking was something that I, and I like being outside, and I like solo type challenging things. I like learning things, like learning how to rollerblade, learning how to ski. And then, yes, you signed up for a race. You signed up for a race.
Yeah, I remember that. So that was at Northfield Mountain.
Is that where that was?
Yeah, and it was midsummer, and it was so hot.
Brutal.
It was so hot. It was so dry.
Yes.
And you actually finished the race. I have no idea what place. It does not matter because you finished the race.
I was dead last.
Oh,
and I know that because for years my name would show up on Google searches because they had the results up.
Right.
I was dead last. I mean, I should have been dead last. I do remember passing someone, an older gentleman from the category ahead of me, and being very proud of myself.
I mean, but the thing is, you finished, and I did not finish that race.
Did not.
Because I was choking down on the dust.
It was very, very hot. I do remember that.
The dust was so bad that you just couldn't breathe if you were in the mid pack and back at the start. It was just it was unbearable.
I do think it's that race is probably a great indicator of all future endeavors for me, which is I had no idea what we had signed up for. I was completely unprepared for it. I had zero expectations. Actually, Sophie and I were talking about this today, that one thing I do well is if I know I haven't prepared for something, then I am okay with the results. Where like she and maybe even you are like, well, I'm not going to do it because I know I didn't prepare and I'm going to suck. And I'm like, I'm going to suck. It's fine. Like I can't be mad about a thing I didn't prepare for, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to do it.
Not going to do it. Right. Yeah.
So yeah, but you didn't finish. Did we camp? I feel like that was a camp. That might have been our first like camping thing. I feel like we camped.
I can't even recall that. Maybe.
I do.
Yeah.
Okay. So
it's far enough away that we definitely could have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we got married, right? And at some point,
that race was probably before we got married.
Right.
Yeah.
We went to a Nemba Fest.
We went to a Nemba Fest.
Right? One of the first.
No, I don't know.
It was early.
It was early.
Nemba
yeah,
Fest.
and
have
I mean, we were.
Like I was still wearing my Wheaton College class of 1994 sweatshirt as like a thing I actually wore. So
right.
That was pretty.
Yeah, and we gave $100 to the fund to buy the Vietnam property trail system, which was a lot of money for us at the time, being just broke, early 20-somethings.
Yeah, so we got married, and at some point you must have sold the Trek because that started the spin of eBay frame purchases and buildups.
Yep.
That I used to the annual buildup of bikes.
The annual was it that frequent?
It was very frequent. Like there would be. I used to say that I would worry. I was going to worry that we were in trouble when you stopped building me bikes because it didn't take a lot for you to be like, "Oh, you rode it a couple of times. Let's sell it and we'll build something else."
Right.
I really was very. And I would say mountain bike was our lead bike, but we had road bikes. I mean, there were road bikes through all this.
Yep.
But I think mountain bikes were our...
Yeah, there was... Well, so... And then I was on my Cannondale mountain bike phase. So,
yes.
So I built up a bunch of Cannondale mountain bikes for you.
And I bought you a brand new Cannondale.
And then, yes, and then
what was that for?
That was a road bike.
Your birthday?
Yeah,
Why
something
did I
like
buy
that.
that for you?
Yep, so that was a Cannondale R1000 with Ultegra.
Yes.
That also came from Bike Alley.
That's when I learned the valuable lesson, which is don't get too attached to bicycles because after a couple of years you sold it. Because it wasn't quite right.
I had that one for a while. No, it was
was
great.
Know. But at some point you sold it, and I was like, "What?"
I did, but that was
what? And you were like, "No, you have to."
No, I kept that. I probably had that for 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and you had gotten so. See, I had got that road bike, and you got a specialized. It was probably an LA road bike. Yeah, you probably forgot
See,
about that one.
I don't even remember that bike.
Yeah.
I just remember the red, white, and blue one.
I mean, so we were definitely road riding and mountain biking.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had babies. I had babies. And that's when I think we shifted to road because it was harder to get out. I wasn't that confident in my skills.
Oh, maybe that's when we got you the road bike. Because I was still doing a lot of mountain biking at that time.
But I was like,
when the kids were little.
I can't get out and ride and worry about hurting myself. And like, it's hard enough to get up the hills. So maybe it would be easier on a road. Like, I do remember that.
I can see that being your thinking.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so then around this time, you built me that. Well, we can talk about all the different bikes, but it wasn't until you built me the Le Mans that we still have that I was like, oh, this is a nice bike. I like this bike. Like that you felt that connection to your bicycle.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So that was when the kids were younger. And that's the other question I get a lot. It's like, how did you do it when the kids were younger? I did not. In fact, I had the podcast and Manic Mommies at the time. And so, and you didn't have the bike shop. You had a job.
Right.
And you had a job. You have a job now, but you had a job where somebody else paid you. And there's one episode I remember listening to, and I was like, Aaron was like, what's Steve up to? I was like, oh, well, it's Saturday, so he's out for his bike ride. Like that was like, I'm at home with the kids, and I'm recording this nonsense, and Steve's out for your multi-hour.
And I think at that time, I was definitely more into the road. And I was doing a lot of road rides with a couple of different groups around.
You also had that job, the Mass DEP.
Oh, that's right.
Right? And you had a lot
so
of
that kicked off the road riding from the mountain bike riding. So there were 3 guys at this job I had who would go out at lunchtime and do a road ride.
Yeah.
And
government work.
And I want to say I didn't have a road bike at that time. So I pieced together that Raleigh Technium, which was not fully assembled. I had to piece back together parts, got that Technium running, then started riding with those guys at lunch.
That's probably
and
when we then bought you the Cannondale.
Yes, and that's why we bought the Cannondale.
There was a reason.
Yeah, that's what reinvigorated my road riding again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See? Oh, my goodness.
I know.
Okay. So we did that for a while, kind of bumbled around for a while. Then you started Steve the Bike Guy, which really was a roady. It was the Velo Studio.
That's right. It really started.
Very road oriented. You were very in your road. And then, and you were servicing triathlons.
Oh yes, and I was doing neutral support at triathlons. Yep. Because I wrote to a local triathlon. Remember this? Yes.
I wrote to a local triathlon organizer as you. And I was like, oh, I've just opened a new mobile bike service and I'd be interested in maybe providing neutral race support. And they called you like an hour later. You're still in bed. I hadn't even told you. And you're like, what?
And I hear you come running. Yep.
And then you were doing that, and I was like, well, if you're not getting paid... Oh, you came home, and you were like, you should do triathlons. I swear some of these people just woke up this morning and decided to do a triathlon.
Oh, they definitely woke up that morning and decided to do a triathlon.
And
in terms of they woke up that morning and decided to pull their bike out for the triathlon.
Yeah, they were local sprints. They were So we basically said, well, if he's working for free, you can give me a free try. And that was around my 40th. That was around that would have been 10, 12, right? I had just turned 40. The kids were older. I was starting to feel better and ready to be active. And so I started doing triathlons, which was all road. And that was on the Le Mans.
Yep, that was on the Le Mans.
On the Le Mans. And then you got into cyclocross. Yes. How did you discover cyclocross?
Through Alex and Jason.
Oh, is that? That's how you... Okay, so that's a couple of friend of ours who, it's funny, the wives, Alex and I were like, we should get the boys together. But Jason was like, well, I mean, I know you say he rides bikes, but like, does he? But then you rode your bike, your blue, Was that the blue or was that you rode a bike?
That was a cyclocross bike, but I want to say I got that. Or I built that. I remember getting the frame because Jason said I should do cyclocross racing.
Okay, so then the blue must not have been in play. You rode something up to the softball field.
Oh, that would have been my road bike.
Jason had not met you yet.
Mm-hmm.
He saw the bike and he said, "Oh yes, he does ride bikes."
Oh,
I will connect with him. Like that's when the love match made between you and Jason.
Right.
Right, because
yeah, that was probably I have a Le Mans Tête de Course,
okay,
which is titanium and carbon, and that would.
And he was like, "That's okay."
Yeah.
So he introduced us. So he had been doing cyclocross. He introduced you. To it.
Yeah, he said I should race, and we were up at where was that first race? No, yes, we were up at a wedding in New Hampshire, and we had to leave a little early so I could come down to Lancaster to do my first cross race with Jason. Yeah.
Okay, I don't remember that.
Yeah,
at all.
wedding for your cousin.
Oh.
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating. Okay. And then Alex and I watched and said, Alex and I did triathlon together, and we said, we are not doing this. This is very, very stupid.
Right.
And then the next year we had skin suits.
And then the next year you had skin suits, and there you are on a cross bike.
Skin suits, and you had built me a cross bike, and I remember Alex saying, we went to some clinics because that's what we do, and Alex said to me, why are you so comfortable on dirt? Because again, she was a triathlete. Yeah. I was doing triathlon with her.
Yeah.
Call myself a adult onset athlete. And I was like, oh my gosh, I used to mountain bike. Like I literally, it was like a past life experience. Like that, I'm comfortable on dirt because I had ridden on dirt.
This is actually kind of fascinating to talk about this because you realize we rode mountain bikes for a bit together.
Yes.
And then you kind of stopped.
Yes.
And I went into a road phase, and you didn't really ride the road that much with me. And then you got into the triathlons.
Well, we started riding the road more.
And
yep. And then I started doing triathlons.
So really, there was that bit of riding together, mountain biking, but then it was not all that much. I mean, I wasn't riding with the triathlons. I wasn't doing that with you.
No.
So then really, it was the cross racing, which we were started to really be doing the same riding together all the time.
Yes, and that's when I was like, so you had built me a lovely Focus. It was aluminum, and I remember picking it up and then picking up your bike, which was carbon, and saying, what the hell? Because, and I get it, you weren't sure that I was going to be interested, but I also was like, shouldn't someone who's new be on a lighter bike? Like that's always the catch, right? Like
it is always the catch. You know what? There's a whole podcast to discuss about this in the future.
It's really hard, and you did a really good job of lightening her up.
We put your you hit your bike on a diet.
Yeah, we put the bike on the diet, and then it brought us together. It brought Sophie started doing it. Anders started doing it. It was like the first time like we were all riding together. We were doing the same. There's another show, which I would love to do, which is about racing with your kids, because it was so great to be able to say, like, it's one thing when you are watching your kid on the sidelines, and I'm never going to coach my kid. Let's be clear. Like that's what coach is for. But to be like, oh, you got to, I know it's hard. You got to put yourself out there. Right. But they're just sitting there seeing you sit there.
Yeah.
And they're drinking your coffee. They don't see you putting yourself out there.
Right.
In a professional capacity, right? You're just mom and dad. But when they see you flat, when they see you fail, when you race with them, it's such an amazing experience and an opportunity to be a guidepost to them, to be like, yes, that is hard, and I did fail, and look at how I handled that.
Yeah.
Like I will always be grateful for those experiences.
And and because of the nature of what a cross race is, when something goes wrong with your kids on course, you have to sit there behind the tape and encourage them with your words, but you cannot do anything to help them.
So they have to be. But then I remember like
run with that bike.
Right. I remember flatting in Connecticut, and Sophie watched me having to run. Like I had to run the bike like a mile to get to the end. And I was smiling and I was laughing. This ridiculous, just ridiculous, right? And she and I talked about that. Like how I had two options. I could throw my bike, I could kick the dirt, or I could just like, this is racing.
Yeah.
And sure enough, a couple weeks later, she at Gloucester, she had a problem with her derailleur.
Yeah, her derailleur imploded.
And she had to run through, and of course she was like, everybody thinks they're so clever. They're like, you should find a good mechanic.
Right.
Just of course. But yeah, how often do you get to say, be a good sport, but to show them, how many times do you get to show them that you're what that looks like, what that means. So, okay. And that brings us to kind of back to, then fat bikes, which we talked about in the fat bike episode, right? We started fat biking.
Yep.
Which then brought us back
to mountain biking, right?
To mountain biking.
Yeah.
The circle of life.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. So, I can't even remember really what mountain bike I was using. And again, these things all came around for me. Like, you know, I had the nice road bikes early on. Then I moved to mountain biking. Then I didn't have a road bike at all until we got that nice Cannondale after I showed interest in road biking again. And then back into road riding, and I can't even think of what mountain bike. I'm sure I had them. Oh well, I always had the Kona. In fact, that's what it was. It was the Kona from college that I sort of resurrected and got that going again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're right. When you reflect back, while we ride together all the time. Well, I always rode with you. Let me say that. I always rode with you. I don't remember when it was, but I was like, I'm going to ride my bike to work. And you were like, by yourself? And I was like, I am. I can do it. I've mapped it out and I've driven it. I have some good back ways. And I think you were really nervous. I was not someone who rode by herself.
Right.
Right. So that was a big change. But these days, I mean, we ride a lot together. We really do.
A lot
together. But we really didn't. Yeah. It was, because we had kids and we had like, now you're my chief playmate, so you have to ride my bike.
Yeah, that's true. Until your kids can just be left by themselves, there's one or the other can go for a ride.
We have plenty of pictures of them in the draggy things. We rode together in that way. We rode as families. We rode, but the way we ride today, you're absolutely right. It was cyclocross that started that kind of thing where it was just kind of expected that we would go together, and there are times where you sign up for things and I think I should do that, like I can do that now, or times where you're like, I'm not sure you can do that, and I'm like, I can do that. I think doing the Pan Mass Challenge was a big, for the first time, which is 2 days 200 miles effectively, was a big maybe turning point in your head when you realized that I could probably do more than we had thought about.
Yep.
Right? I signed up for the PMC.
Yeah, and you had to train for that. So that sort of leveled up your riding. Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It leveled up also my interest in signing up for stuff and realizing what opportunity was for there. So anyway, that's our story. That's how we started cycling together. And we are really excited to bring other stories of people,
of different people, yes,
of how they started
riding together.
I don't think everyone's gonna have 25 years ago. So I do want to talk about one thing, which is the bikes of our past that maybe we have some regrets about.
I don't know. That seems like a whole nother podcast. But,
it could be, but there's two I would like to give some honorable mention.
Okay.
Number one is the Kona.
Yeah.
Now that Kona was a beautiful
pale purpley gray. The Kona Hot was their top model that were actually handmade by Tom Teasdale in California.
You are not making this better.
And each one was custom painted individually. And so that and it was a 90s bike, so it was purple metallic fade to gray metallic. it was really cool. Now,
And what did you do to it?
paint job was hammered. It was beaten up, and the labels which were under the clear coat had then peeled up and come up, and so leaving sort of this clear coat outline, which was
that
dull,
shabby chic now.
Anyway, and yes, I stripped it down and I painted it. Not a very good job on it. And
it was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It was like blue. Like it was like somewhere between this blue and those two
no, it's
blues.
just. Yeah.
Did you get rid of it?
No,
Is
I still have that frame.
You do?
Yeah, in fact, I've thought about going to take it to a powder coater and having it done nicely.
Try to recreate it.
Yeah,
We should
and
do
I
that.
thought about you can actually put on disc brake tabs on the back and then turn it into a gravel bike, if you will. Yeah.
I think the only bike in my past that I have regrets about maybe getting rid of was that cool Cannondale.
The Delta V? Oh, the Delta V one.
V.
Yeah.
I see pictures of it now. I'm sure it would ride like crap.
Yeah.
And I will say
It'd
that
make a
was,
great hybrid,
when I got
actually.
into mountain biking, anytime I got into cycling, I was big on reading all your magazines, and I was reading all the, and there was a great article, maybe in Bicycle Magazine, with somebody who was like, anyone who tells you in mountain biking, the equipment, that things were better in the old days.
Oh, right.
is full of shit. I loved this article. It was like, it was all about being a more welcoming community. Some things don't change. But the article was like, the equipment was bad, the helmets were bad, the trails were bad, everything was bad. But it's such a cool looking bike. I have a picture of it.
Yeah,
I will
Yeah.
definitely.
I mean, I
flip- it
thought
was
your
just a
blue
neat-
and yellow one was a little bit better looking, but
That was blue
Sir-
and yellow. Oh,
No,
which
no.
one was blue and yellow?
no, the blue and yellow was it was not a Delta one.
Oh, okay.
The Delta one was the one with the crazy tubes that sort of have an X pattern in the middle.
Oh, I
Dark-
think
it was
I'm
dark
merging
blue.
them. I think
So you're
merging them
thinking about the
together.
blue and yellow
I'm
one.
playing the blue and yellow one.
Oh yeah, so that
one
was very cool looking bike.
pretty.
Yeah, it had a head shock
bike.
and yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a very
That
cool
a
bike.
The head shock.
That got
Yeah.
we sold that and I want to say it went to like Switzerland.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, all those bike builds are why you are so good today at, like, during the pandemic when we had no parts and we had no, right? And you had to, we introduced Saturday service and you were fixing stuff. That is where you got those skills. There's no question in my mind that just all those bike builds you did. All right. Well, that's it. That's our story. So if you would like to actually share your story, give us drop us a line. We have a couple of people on our list. Do you have anything else for this episode? I don't think we have any seen while scrollings, do we?
Oh, seen while scrolling. There has to be something we saw while scrolling this week, right?
I saw that I joined the Mass Bike Board of Directors.
There we go.
I mean, I might have put
Right.
it out there.
Yeah, there we go. That's a big thing.
Yeah, it is. I'm really excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited about the idea that I feel like there's only so much you and I can do to move the needle on making cycling more welcoming and more on all levels, right? Like, so I'm stoked. I don't
Okay.
know enough now to know what I'm going to be doing.
What you're gonna be
other
getting
than-
yourself into, but
Yeah,
yeah.
other than helping.
Yeah. You have a lot
With
to offer,
marketing.
so it's
Aw, thanks.
they will appreciate you.
That's awesome. All right. Is that
Okay.
it for this episode?
That is it.
All right, so let's wrap this up. Cycling Together with Kristin and Steve is a production of Steve the Bike Guy, an independent bike shop in Eastern Massachusetts, and Sundin Marketing.
If you like the show, please leave a review or share with a friend. For show notes, links, or to leave a comment, question, or topic suggestion, visit cyclingtogether.bike. And you can follow the shop on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube at Steve the Bike Guy.
Thank you for joining the ride. See you next time.